Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. As I tend to do each week, I find somebody that is awesome to hang out with, and they kind of present a question. And this one's a little bit unique because I didn't even think of the answer the right way. So normally I'm pretty good at this, but today it totally messed me up. So I'm going to ask you the question, and then we'll jump into it today. So when somebody asks you for a name that is actually an expert in your industry, who do you think of? And when that was proposed to me by our guest, I'm like, coming up with all these names, and it totally messed me up when I realized that I should have put my name there. So I'm like totally already off my game, and we're cruising to LA today, somewhere in California, to be hanging out with Beate. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. What an excellent question that is like, what is it about that we don't put ourselves at the top of the expert lists?
I know, exactly. Well, you are known as the growth architect. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And tell us a little bit about what's going on at the growth architect.
I'd be happy to. Well, thank you so much for having me and welcome everyone. So my name is Beate Chelette. I am originally from Germany and I am known as the growth architect because I love systems, strategies, workflows, all that stuff that a lot of people, when they hear the word, their eyes glaze over and they want to run away and talk about big ideas. And I'm the one who helps you land the ideas by designing these blueprints to actually give you ideas some legs and a foundation. So I help visionaries and leaders to scale their impact and grow their authority by really helping them to develop the system that then allows them to take this big idea and put it to market in a language that's unique to them and with a system that can be scaled
Oh
quickly.
my gosh. Well, so I wrote down systems and strategies because those are my two least favorite words. Sorry. I mean, I'll just tell you right up front. I'm in that same exact spot. Well, then you just added another one in workflows, and it's like, oh my gosh, now I'm like, there's a third word that I'm going to be running away from, right? Exactly. But you know what? I think it's interesting because us as business owners, entrepreneurs, we have all these ideas in our head, and I would have a wall full of post-it notes if I didn't have a great team behind me that took that concept and created a process, a system, a workflow. So as much as I despise the words, they're necessary to have success in a business. So what do you do for the entrepreneur listening, today, Beate, that really is in that same camp where I don't like that, I don't need it? How do you help them kind of get back to reality there?
Yeah, I think that that's probably what you're touching on to is probably a real cause for anxiety for a lot of entrepreneurs because let's face it, especially on the creative side, you got into this because you have a big idea
Yep.
and people love it and they love you and you can riff on it and what if, and it feels so good when you do that, and then there comes a day where you have to sit down on a computer, lock yourself in, and then you're going to have to somehow figure out how to make that a business. So you shall not despair, basically. So there really is a
Thank you.
there, there really is a very easy way to do this. I mean, number one, if you are in that boat, and I love what you said, Dave, I have a team who does that for me. Really find yourself somebody who can do that, because why terrorize yourself with something that you're just not naturally good at? I
Right.
work with a lot of creatives. I come from the creative industry, so I have a photography degree, but I found very quickly that my ideas weren't as brilliant as some of the other photographer ideas, and that I was naturally much better at the business side. So I've been in the production and representation business my entire life. And then I just took this into my consulting because I figured it's like, how can you not know how to do that? Because it is so easy. So, what is easy really about this is that I want you to think about that there is an umbrella over your business or your idea. And that is the piece that everything you do needs to fit in under. I call this your signature growth system.
Okay.
So you can then do the speaking, and you can do the online and the in person and the workshops, and you can do all these different pieces that go into your unique system, right? And that could be 5, 6, 7 steps. And now you no longer have to fret over, nobody understands what I do, because for this person I do this, and for this person I do that, and
Right.
this person I do this. So the system becomes the niche, right? So suddenly you can go, oh, I get it. So I, as a creative or somebody who's not conforming to the traditional get rich in the niche ideas, as somebody who has a bigger idea of a client transformation journey, whatever that might be, right? It could be coach, consultant, a healer, anybody. You are now no longer conformed to fitting that only in one piece of it. Now you can say, I have 5 pieces, phases, steps, elements, where now when you graduate from the first phase, you get to the next phase, then you graduate to the third. The advantage something like this has is that you now can precede all your other stuff without selling, because you said, well, just to explain to you how this works, these are all
Yeah.
the pieces that are there, but you're here. So I now, after my conversation with you, I'm going, oh, there's 5 pieces. I'm in the first one. So I already know that there's 4 other pieces. So there's no, when you say, well, you're now ready for the next piece. Now I'm not going, you're trying to sell me something, David.
Sure.
Now I'm going to go, oh, thank you. Oh, really? I finished the first one. I'm ready for the second one. It's a whole
Sure.
different vibe. So
Wow.
if you think about this from the perspective of that a system or a strategy, right? So once you have the system, then you need to design the strategies. Can you even imagine how many more people you can serve where you have this in place, and how free you would be to move from one thing to the other?
Hmm. So are these all like should they be related to each other, these 5 steps? Or is there different, I mean, are there all different components to this? How does that work?
So it really depends. So I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
So we designed for our brand, the Growth Architect, the 5-star success blueprint,
Okay.
because the path on how entrepreneurs grow their business is always the same. The first star is the idea. Who are you selling to? What are you selling? Why are you selling it? Who wants it? And what problem does it solve? Then there's a second star, right? So until you have that first one, you can't do anything else. You're not
Okay.
allowed to, because
Sure.
that has to be flushed out. The second star is the offer. Now you're ready to actually create an offer that solves a problem for that person you just identified that they want to
Okay.
buy. The third star is now you're building the systems. So how are you getting this offer in front of these people? How do you reach everybody? The fourth one is the team. Now you hire the team that can operate the system, that can bring that offer to the person you're selling the problem for. And then the fifth one finally is you as the leader, because then what kind of leader do you need to be to run the team that operates the systems, that handles the offer, that solves the problem for your clients?
So we have idea and offer and system and team and leader. So that
Exactly.
in your 5-star success blueprint here, that's kind of that's the anatomy of what we're dealing with here then, correct?
Exactly. And so now, Dave, to answer your question, does it always have 5? No. Sometimes we have columns, quadrants, pillars. Sometimes we have steps, phases, elements. So it depends on what the business really is. So I find that, especially for coaches and consultants, and I don't know, Dave, if you find this as well, and do chime in. I would love to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah.
But the differentiation factor and the positioning really is where it's at, right? It needs to sound like you are somebody who knows what you're doing, and that you're different. Now if you come in, you say, oh, I have a method, I have a system for that. Now you establishing yourself as an authority much quicker
Sure.
than saying I'm a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, if you Google leadership development, just as by way of example, there's billions of choices, right? So everybody's got their own way to do it, and I don't know what the right way, I'm sure everybody thinks theirs is the right way, right? So, I think it's, um, I'm looking at this and trying to put in an idea in my mind and then create the offer and then build that system around that. So I'm already kind of thinking about how to make this work. Do most people then, do they kind of, they're good at the idea, they're okay at the offer, and then they kind of, the wheels fall off at the system? Is that what you're noticing on your end? And that's where you all of a sudden
Yeah,
the phone starts ringing for you?
yeah, exactly. It's like that's when I put my superwoman cape on and boom, So, yes, it is something along the way. I think that the objective is, right, for us as consultants is that, or business owners, whatever it is that you do as you're listening
Mhm.
to this, right? It's your job to really help figure out for your client where they are at. Because the conversation, the sales conversation now is a lot more difficult than it was about a couple years ago because people are concerned, they're worried, there's a lack of safety and trust in the market. We have a madman with a finger on a nuclear button. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty that
Sure,
people are really worried about. So your job now is to help yourself to be the partner for your clients or your prospects, and to say, listen, before I even sell you anything or before we even go anywhere, let me just figure out where in this journey you even are. So when I now have this conversation, Dave, and it's exactly what you said, so the idea is completely flashed out, so I can say, congratulations, you don't
yeah,
need that, you already have that, it's brilliant,
sure,
spot on, I know exactly what it is, I get it. Your offer, I mean, obviously you're not selling enough, so there might be some things in there that might need to be adjusted. But how
sure,
are you going to get this in front of enough people? And then it's crickets.
sure,
And so then I say, well, what you now need is you need to have help with building the system. And then I can go in the benefits of that and say, well, now you have more things to sell because it's broken down. You're not doing what I call the knowledge vomit on your clients. And if you're listening to this and you're a coach or consultant, you're probably guilty of this. You probably want to take all your 20, 30 years of experience, just vomit on your client in like 2 hour sessions. And then they
yep.
walk out, they run away, and then they need a vacation just from that session alone.
Oh my gosh, you just must have hung out with me recently. Nice job. Yeah, right?
It,
That's
it,
awesome.
you know,
It's
Dave,
painful though.
if you don't have the framework to do that, it's just not how our brains normally think, and certainly not if you are a true creative, because your brain doesn't conform to that thought. But
Hmm,
I see it like this: I'll crawl into your head, I'll help you find the puzzle pieces, we pull them out, we assemble them, and then what typically happens is that somebody then will look at this and say, oh my God, this is everything that's been in my head, it's just better
sure, sure.
assembled and organized. I said, that's my job. I'm not, we very rarely, like, I mean, we may create a couple of additional pieces if there's a gap, but most
Sure.
of the time there's, I want to say 80% is already there. It's just about taking it and putting it together. And what a difference.
Yeah. Well, and I think most entrepreneurs that are listening they're really good at the idea piece, like you said, right? They are really great at that. And then they kind of go downhill from there. So we at Positive Polarity, we do a lot of work with the personality profile disc because I want to create a team, to your actual fourth one. Once you have a system, I want to create a team where I understand the strengths and weaknesses, and I understand I don't want 10 people on my team that are like me, because we're going to have a whole wall full of post-it notes, but not one of them are going to get done because I do the idea. I struggle at the implementation part. So I'm thinking, as you're building this team, you're trying, isn't the entrepreneur tendency to hire, oh, I wish I had more people like me. If there were more people like me on my team, we'd do way better. Are you, what do you see on the team side when somebody's getting ready to build that team?
I cannot emphasize enough with you how much I see that. Yeah, I call this mini me cloning, and you are absolutely prohibited from ever doing that because, so I had somebody reach out to me and says, "Hey, my friend is looking for an assistant." The assistant should do writing, proofreading, CRM management, light bookkeeping, and run around for the owner. And I
Sure.
wrote back and I said, never going to happen. I said,
Yeah.
that's 5 jobs.
Yeah.
I said, never going to happen. I said, so let me guess. This person is trying to clone herself. And then the answer was like a smiley face and an LOL. With I think I need to talk to her about this question mark. I said, absolutely. So the idea of scaling. So Dave, what you do, right? So let's just talk about sort of in this 5-star success blueprint and
Yeah.
your piece. So how I then would explain, I would say, now we bring in our expert, Dave, and Dave will figure out the type of people that you actually need to operate the systems. And when we do that, then we look at what type of personality is best for what task,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Not to
Right.
say that not all people can master certain things, but if we
Right.
can pick it, we have a preference. So I always say, how, if you have a bookkeeper, how creative do you want your bookkeeper to be? The answer should be not very, because the books either match or it either balances or not.
Right.
How creative you want your accountant to be.
There you
Now we
go.
have, yeah, now we have a little bit of a different
Yep.
thing in here, right?
Creative accounting, right? That's what I hear.
Yeah, so there might be, that you might want some of that.
Right.
For
Yep.
somebody else, it makes them completely nervous and freak them out if it's not
Right.
exactly, done a certain way. How creative do you want your salesperson to be? How engaging, how empathetic do you want somebody to be who is in customer service?
Right.
So to your point, Dave, and I'm so happy that you do DISC, we do Myers-Briggs, is that you need to know who these people are and speak to
Right.
them in the right language. I just had a email that came in this morning, and it was from a client that says, well, what do I do with that? And it was somebody who wanted an agenda for a meeting, even though he felt that he had roughly outlined, something and said, well, why can't she not just go with the flow? And I
Yep.
said to him, because your personality type goes with the flow.
Yep.
Her personality type needs an agenda.
Yep.
So you need to learn on how to give people what they need to shine in their area of expertise. That's our job as leaders. And that's what you do, Dave.
Yeah. I think that's so crazy how many people actually have it where they build a system around, they build their company around themselves. And if we could just have 10 of me, that would be awesome. And I think it's really sad because there's some really solid people that you need to come in and do whatever it is. And if like that person that gave you 5 things that they were supposed to do, it's like there's no way that you can do that. And so then frustration happens because then we try and get as close as possible to that, knowing that the likelihood of failure is probably pretty high. Cost of hiring is crazy. I mean, it's just this vicious circle. So, I mean, how do you help people see that when they come in with their blinders on, so to speak, and they want to create that team that's just like them? I mean, is it hard for entrepreneurs to hear that you don't want to hire people like you? Is that a tough message that you've
No,
noticed?
not really. I think, the way we use our personality assessment is designed to, number one, help them understand who they are. And then we add that in the way we operate or we design strategies, that we make it clear that you are one out of, in Myers-Briggs, there's 16 personality types out of 16 personality types. And then the question is, do you only want to sell to one out of 16? Well, you do the
Sure.
percentage of that, and then I'll tell you how much you're leaving on the table.
Yeah.
And that generally gets the message home to say, well, what do I need to do? And if I just sum this up sort of very quickly for your audience, Dave. So there are people who buy spontaneously. So these are the people that says, is it fun? They always buy first because they're excited. They're always ready
Sure.
for the party. Let's do it. Let's go. Then there are people who want to win. So you need to outline very quickly and effortlessly. It's like, how does this make them be better than the competition? They tend to buy second.
Sure.
Then there are the people that are empathetic and some people call them touchy-feely or emotional, but I prefer no judgment on this. Let's call him the empath. And they want to make sure that everybody's taken care of, that it's fair for everybody, that that it's, that everybody has a voice in this. And then the final one is the one that is very methodical and logical. And
Mm,
they just need to know, give me all the information, tell me exactly what I'm getting, how does it work before they make the decision. If you
sure.
just keep these four things in top of your mind and you write another sales letter or another landing page, you'll be in good shape.
Wow. And I think it's interesting because, like, on the surface, whether they're customer service people or salespeople, if somebody said I'm a people pleaser, we all think that that's really good. But then that actually can get taken out of context because I've seen plenty of customers roll over customer service people because they can't say no because they want to please that individual. So that's what I think is so important about assessments in general, is it really kind of is a look under the hood to be able to get a really good understanding of what this person is. And as your fourth piece of your 5-star success blueprint is talking about the team and the leader, those two kind of come together because we need to understand the personality of the leader as well. So once people understand that, I think then it's like, well, I want somebody that's as far away from me as possible. I mean, I want the exact opposite, but we have to realize that sometimes opposites aren't successful together. So if you have two people on a team that are opposite personality, how do you kind of work through that with those people?
Well, we just had a case where I did a team sales session with one of my clients, and one of them was really pushing back hard, right? So we were going through some of these sales techniques, and
Okay.
she's like, "Well, I think that's too pushy. I don't think they want that." And she was pushing back really hard. And there was a part where I go, "Should I now be annoyed because no matter what I say, she pushes back and she
Yeah.
takes a like a contrary position on this." And
Right.
then I thought about it and I'm like, well, we really need somebody like this on the team. And so I said to her, I really appreciate you pushing back on this because I think it's important that we hear this objection. And then she started smiling. She just wanted to be heard that her concerns, which were probably a lot related to her inexperience with sales.
Sure.
She was in her early 20s, so she was just going by what she felt, and it didn't
Sure.
wasn't founded in the psychology of sales or the neurolinguistic programming and like all the things that you learn when you're in it for a little bit longer. But it
Yeah.
wasn't my place to put her in place because I always think about, we probably have buyers that are the same personality type and that
Right.
are in the same age group. So we don't want to make that judgment rather than you go in. So let me ask you, why are you saying that? What is it about that that rubs you the wrong way? Or what is it about that you feel we are stepping out of bounds? Like, tell me a little bit more about that. And you make sure that you really hear what they have to say so you get to the bottom of what's really going on. So if it's a like, well, I just don't like it personally when somebody does that to me, then that's different versus the I don't want to do the work. That's why I want to stop. I don't
Right.
want to go past that objection. I don't want to take somebody who says, well, I'm not sure. I don't want to go and then feel like I'm convincing them to buy something. That's different because then they don't have the skill set yet.
Yeah.
So it's a difference between a personal opinion, between a valid argument, and between a lacking skill set. And it's our job as leaders to go past that first initial, oh my God, here we go again,
Yeah.
to what the real reason is, and then address it accordingly.
Yeah. I mean, it's leaders have so much to do in a day. It's crazy, right? I mean, I'm shocked when I hear younger people say, "Oh, I can't wait to be the boss," or "I can't wait to be in leadership," and it's just like I look and I think, and it's almost like a calling where you can't not be there, and I feel like the people that want it, I'm not sure they should have it because, what do you it's interesting when you ask why. Why are you interested in getting into leadership? And more often than not, right? Doesn't it kind of gravitates to where I'm going to tell others what to do, or I'm not going to work as hard. And it's kind of the opposite because, our customers tell us what to do, hopefully. And if you're not working more as a leader, you may, who knows how successful you are. So when you run into somebody that says, I want to be a leader, what's your advice to them?
I think that the first question is always, what do you want to lead, right? So what is it that your objective is here? So if somebody says, I want to be a leader, then the
Yeah,
question is, what kind of leader? Are you going to be a thought leader? Are you going to be a leader of a large organization? Are you going to be a leader in your own life? Like what is that? What does it exactly mean for you?
sure.
So for me personally, I do believe that in my leadership, the way I accept my leadership is definitely as a thought leader, as a woman who has built and sold a business to Bill Gates, which not a lot of women have done. And as somebody who understands system processes, strategies, workflows, and is able to break that down very quickly and make it accessible to many, many more people so they can be more successful, which is why in my leadership, we say that my impact is measured by the impact you're making. So the more
Mm,
I'm helping you to make your impact, the bigger my impact is because the more people I can reach. And
sure.
so I think that as a leader, to answer your question, the question really is, what's the why behind the leadership? Um, if a leader says, well, because I want to be the boss and call the shots, that's okay. There's not much of a vision and a purpose behind that, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no,
so
that's true.
so what is the mission, the vision, and the purpose behind the leadership? And I find the further up you go, Dave, and you probably experience the same, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the further up you go, the clearer leaders are that they're really servants and they're really here to help other people shine. And I think that's the discrepancy between a wannabe leader and a real leader, because a real leader is here to help people to really excel
Yeah.
further beyond what they thought they're capable of.
Well, and I think a lot of it though has to do with how you were actually raised or what you thought of a leader as, when you were younger. I mean, I remember my parents growing up, my dad always would come home and, the boss this and the boss that, and you get this vision as a kid. He's sitting in the corner office, and it's smoke in there and everything, and you can barely see. And it's like the scariest place to
And
be
he's getting a
because
beating every 15 minutes.
yeah, exactly. Beatings will continue until morale improves,
Right,
and like
exactly.
the only time you ever get called in there is when you're going to get yelled at or fired, so you kind of grow up with this thought process, and then you get into the real world and you find out that it's different, or somehow it could be the same. So I feel like there's a pretty big shift in the last 20 years from the boss to the leader type of scenario. But um, I think that if the leader, and I want to jump into this mindset piece, because if leaders don't have the right mindset, I think that you're really challenged. If you're not crystal clear on why you're doing it, then I start to wonder, why are you doing it? I hate seeing a great sales professional get promoted to a sales manager and they can't do it because they have two totally different skill sets. And so I strongly believe that not every great salesperson professional makes a great sales manager. But again, some of that, excuse me, is mindset. So, how does mindset play into you, and your success? And what do you train your people on mindset?
I think mindset is really everything. Without changing your mindset, there's no success. I mean, it's just simple as this, because what you know gets you to a certain point. And I compare this, Dave, to when you go into kindergarten, elementary school, like you improve your mindset, like you're learning something, and then you move on to middle school, to high school, possibly college, master's degree, whatever that might be. but you're used to that notion that when you put something new in it, then there's a next level to achieve. And interestingly enough, is then there comes a point where what, like 80% of the population say, I'm done learning. I'm never going to learn anything else in for the rest of my entire life, because
Sure.
I feel that what, at 20, I've learned everything there is to
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly.
I'm shaking just thinking about this. But I think that the first part of the mindset really is going to be always about what is the skill set that I need to get to where I want to go. Now that would include that you know where you want to go. So if you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't matter what skill sets you have, because any of them will do. I mean,
Sure,
it's, you
for
know,
sure.
it's like the Wild West. But I feel that in the mindset world, so we are huge on mindset. I still do mindset work just about every single day. I think you need to have that practice, and especially as you get to these quantum leaps in life, in business, when you are wanting to initiate a quantum leap, and a quantum leap is when two atoms of energy, right, suddenly have this burst of energy and nobody can explain why. The mindset always is like, if it's possible in nature, it's possible for you. If it's possible for you, then the question isn't can I, but then the question is how can I, right? So suddenly you're in a whole different languaging, and you say, well, I see it's possible. I want a quantum leap. How can I make that happen? And now you recognize that in order to do that, you need to take risks, put money in it. You need to grow beyond what you thought is possible, that what you are today isn't going to get you there. Now you push against the value conflict of the old messaging that says, are you a bloody idiot? You know,
Hmm,
you don't know how to do that. What makes you think you can do that? And
right.
your new knowledge of like, I just spoke to somebody yesterday who's done it, and
Yep.
and I want to do it too, right? So you have this value conflict crashing, and you're in the middle of, and it's like, you can, but it's possible. You can't, but it's possible. It's like wah 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 wah
Yep.
in your brain. And
Sure.
so that's where the mindset comes in. That's where the new you looks at the old piece and says, how interesting of you to show up at this very moment in time. Thank you so much for really voicing your concerns, but this is not what we're going to be doing. We are going to be doing we're going to be going the other direction. So it is really helping yourself to understand your mindset limitations from our old programming,
Sure.
and the necessity to put good stuff in on a continuous basis. And while we're at it, you're listening to Dave's podcast, and you want to now go and subscribe to this podcast, leave him a 5-star review, and talk about something very specific that you learned in this episode. So that way, Dave can continue to do what he does and reach more people.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for that. If you like the show, then yes, you can say it was for me. If you don't like the show, then I totally would blame Beate, because this that's how I do it. Right.
She
No,
she
I'm
she
just
she 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 gave me the plug. It's all on her. So
exactly. No, I'm totally kidding.
positive
But I think
polarity it is.
yeah, absolutely. But I think your mindset piece goes all the way back to where we started as we start to land the plane is, why didn't your name come to mind in your own mind when you said who's a leader in your industry? And I think that can be a mindset shift, that if you start thinking of yourself as an industry leader, then you are going to be much more likely to follow in those footsteps because you're thinking it. And if you think, I'll never be that, I'll never do that, I'm not that, I'm not smart enough, creative enough, or whatever, then I think you follow in those footsteps as well. So I totally see how the mindset really will set your future, and how you're going to look at that question of who is the expert in your industry. So thank you for kind of closing that loop, because I would love nothing more than people today listening get in the habit of saying, I'm the industry expert in my industry. I don't think it's egotistical. I don't think it's wrong. But it is definitely a mindset shift, and it takes practice, I'm assuming, correct?
Daily, like
Yep.
literally daily. I mean, my personal advice is get a pair of good headsets. And then every time you're in the car, every time you're walking the dog, every time you're going from A to B, every time you're going in the gym, every time you work out, every time you hike, every time you walk on the beach, put those headsets on and use this time to really put these new energies and ideas in. And no matter what it is that you need to get better at, I mean, that's really the objective is, you know what you're not good at, then learn how to be good at it. Other people have figured it out, and then you decide if you want to do that or hire somebody for that, right? It's a very simple process. There really is nothing to be freaked out about or concerned about. It's like, I'm right now, my main objective is to get better at sales. So I got myself a 40-hour program, the best of everyone on sales, like 40 hours. And I'm like 5 hours in now. And every time I
Sure.
go out, I'm putting it back on and I'm listening to Wayne Dyer and Brian Tracy and all the greats in sales to really help me to remind myself and keep getting that repetition in to reprogram my subconscious so that when I'm going in the next sales conversation, that enough sticks in my head that I
Sure.
am relaxed and
Sure.
conversational and I'm doing all the things right. So yeah, every day.
Wow, every day. Cool. Well, here's the personal question that this whole kind of thing leads up to, because you mentioned that you sold a business to Bill Gates. And so the question that I have is, did you have the mindset when you started that business that you were in that business to sell it to somebody for something? Was that your mindset there? And the second part of that question is, when Microsoft, Bill Gates, whatever, whoever the entity that you were involved with, when they expressed interest, did that like surprise you, or were you already far enough into the mindset that you that just kind of felt natural?
I did set out for the business to be an equity-based business that I had set up for acquisition. That was
Okay.
my goal going in. And that came because I had so much adversity prior to that and lost my business due to, a bad employee. And then September 11th, I wiped out my production business. And I wanted to build a business that was going to make money while I wasn't there. And I wanted to build a business that I could sell. And it achieved both of it. And so when the day came and I was ready, I did put the word out that I was ready to be acquired. And then I did get an offer, and it was an offer too good to refuse. So the day just came,
Yeah.
basically.
Wow, cool. So it sounds pretty cool. So was it like uneventful, or was it a pretty enjoyable ride for you?
Well, there is a no shit moment in there where you where you look at that and you look
Sure.
at your and I'm sitting in Seattle and in the W hotel, and I'm bringing my fancy Mont Blanc pen to sign the transactional documents, and there is a moment where you go, am I like really doing this? I mean, is this
Yeah.
actually really, really happening to me? And then, you have this like, oh shit, yeah, it's really happening. And it is a moment that cannot really be described other than in that moment after everything I had been through, it just was freedom. It
Yeah.
was just complete and total and utter freedom to say, from here on out, nobody ever will put me out on the street. I will never lose another house. I can buy
Sure.
my own house. I can send my daughter to college. And that was my first call. I called my daughter, who was, I
Yeah.
think, 12 at the time. And I said to her, hey, baby girl, I got good news for you. You can go anywhere in the world you want to study. It's all paid for now, and I'll throw in an extra year for you. And she says, whatever, mom.
Yeah. Where's the M&Ms, mom? Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and,
cool.
and she did eventually get to the point where she realized what that meant, but
Sure.
but at that point it was like whatever, mom, was pretty hilarious.
Wow, that's cool. Well, and I mean, who knows who's going to catch your business, who's going to get excited with your business. I was always told and trained and taught that you grow a business to sell it.
Yes, yeah.
If it's fourth generation, then you may be just selling it to the fifth generation. I don't know what that looks like for everybody. They're a little bit different, but the whole goal of the show is to constantly be encouraging people along the way, because sometimes business gets a little difficult. Sometimes it's a little bit challenging. And so you want to try and find somebody to come alongside you. And that's why, we find people each week that have that gift of coming alongside you. In this case, there's a 5-star success for a blueprint that teaches you how to start with the idea and end with yourself. Sometimes, we got that inverted, and then that also can derail. But, if you're listening today and you are not considering yourself a leader in your industry, and you want to learn more about growth, that's why, you know, um, we have Beate here. So if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to reach out and connect and talk with you?
Yes, thank you so much for that. So there's a couple of things you can do. So if you are experiencing the income sine waves, often called the entrepreneur roller coaster, and you want to know what it actually is that's blocking your business, we just created a quiz. Go to growthblockerquiz.com, and in a couple minutes you'll find out what that one thing is that's really hindering your growth. Available for everybody. Goes very quickly. And then I'll even tell you what to do on how to remove that blocker. The second piece is if you are struggling with making the sales, then start with the Airtight Avatar. You'll find that at airtightavatar.com. We took the identification of who the person is that you're selling to, and we made this, a 15-minute program where you can go and really identify how many different avatars you have. And the reason you need to know that is because they all need to be spoken to in a different language. And finally, if you've heard something, you say, "Oh my gosh, I need to speak to her in person," then
Yes.
go to uncoverysession.com and apply for one of 7 uncovery sessions that are giveaway every month. Make sure you mention the Positive Polarity podcast so
Uh-oh.
that my team can give you priority treatment.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And again, if you're listening and something's tugging at your heart, there were 3 resources right there. They'll be in the show notes for you. You just click on them and boom, you're there. And if you walk away and you don't do anything, that's totally fine. Again, our goal each week is to bring this type of information to you so that you don't have to struggle. There's enough struggles going on. Why in the world would we not want to have somebody come alongside us, somebody that's done it before? And I always say you sure wouldn't build a house without an architect. So why in the world would you try to grow your business without one as well? So thank you so much for hanging out with us, Beate. I love all this that you're doing and can't wait to keep learning from you.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.